So thank you, Clive, for coming to see us. We're a year down the line since you came and met the company for the first time, came and inspired us all about winning behaviours and teamship. And here we are. We've now got a 1FSP playbook, and thought it'd be a great opportunity for us just to connect and chat through some of those things. But yeah, from your perspective, how have you found the process working with FSP?
I think, Sam, first of all, great to be here and good to be talking to you 1 year later. It's gone very, very quickly. I think it's okay you saying your team was inspired by me. I was inspired by your team. I think you remember I arrived early to your conference to speak at it, and I sat at the back of the room and I heard this wonderful sort of talks from a lot of your colleagues about what was happening in the business, especially around diversity inclusion. And I sat there taking copious notes as always. So then for me to be able to deliver a talk about how to create a winning culture, I could build on what I was seeing already. So I think, to be fair, you were a long way down the line in creating a business that was big on culture, big on behaviours and values. And I was able to then share with you my own personal views on this and what I've experienced firsthand. And there's obviously some big synergies there. And I'm just delighted what's happened in the last year, that we've taken it to a whole new level. And your playbook is really something that's very, very special.
Yeah, we're really pleased with it. And I think, like you were saying, we'd always been hopefully at the forefront when it came to thinking about the purpose of the organisation, our organisational values, and then the theory of performance, and making sure that we understood the difference between performance and results. But actually, there was a really key missing piece in there that you got us thinking around winning behaviours, and really making sure that everybody understood what does good look like from a behavioural point of view, and then spending the time to engage the business across the whole business. Actually, that's been a really interesting process for us.
And it's not easy, because my kind of favourite line about this, if you involve people, they'll deliver. And it's I speak to many sort of senior management, and they say, yes, I involve my staff and my team. But when you speak to the team, they don't feel that much involved, a little bit disconnected. So kind of winning behaviours is taking values, which are great, starting position, to a whole new level, but involving people in that process. And that's what you've done, I can say, with you sitting here really, really well. Everyone got really involved. And credit to your team, because sometimes people sit there and they cross their legs and fold their arms. They get, well, do we really need to do this? But I think your company really understands that if you can create real winning behaviours, actions you see on a daily basis, where people are involved in putting those together, it works. Absolutely. It makes a substantial difference to your organisation. So it's involving people, and that's what I saw when I first spoke to you at your conference. But it's what I saw when I did the various sessions with your team, that they did want to be involved. And again, I'm the conductor of the orchestra. I'm asking questions, and they're coming up with so many good ideas and thoughts about what actions and behaviours would make a difference to your business. And it's been a great success, and I'm delighted to be involved in it.
Well, thank you. And where we started was obviously engaging the leadership team. So of the 300 staff that we had, I think, 35 people in 3 workshops that you supported us to facilitate. And the involvement of all of those leaders, starting from a blank sheet of paper, it was almost thinking about, when we're doing our best work, what does that look like? When we're not doing our best work, what does that look like? And then how do we essentially codify that? How do we make sure that we can define what amazing work looks like at FSP? And I think then the process after that was very interesting, because then it was about engaging the hearts and minds and input of the balance of people across the organisation. And I think we received, following those workshops, obviously we had a lot of iterations of the winning behaviours, but following that, I think we had 60 pieces of unique feedback from the wider business that really were put into action and put into change into our playbook as well, which was hard, actually, but really important part of the process for us.
It's not an easy process. I remember when I first met all your colleagues, there's 30 odd people in the room. They're thinking, what Simon done here? I'm going to speak about scrums and lineouts and kind of defence and attack in a rugby game. What's he doing here? I think what puts people at ease, what people makes generally interested. I had a big business background before my rugby career. I'm best known, obviously, in the UK for coaching a rugby team in 2003 that won the World Cup. But prior to that, so everyone's clear, I had 18 years in business. I worked with Xerox, ran Xerox for 9 years, including 5 in Australia, where I was a sales director based out of Sydney. But most importantly, when we came back from Australia, I set up my own small leasing and finance company. based on the skills I learned with Xerox Finance. They also ran for 9 years. When I say small, Simon, it was like 10 people. And what I stressed to your colleagues or your leadership team was it was that 9-year period of running my own small company that really allowed me to develop this concept around winning behaviors and actions. Because when you run your own small company, I mean, you're not bogged down by layers of bureaucracy and management, which I saw in Xerox. I was the boss, I was the chief executive, the founder. I employed at a high level 10 people. But unashamedly, I was, because it's your business, I try to employ people better than me. So when you employ people better than you or more knowledge than you, you start to actually learn, it's not all about me leading the team. It's actually asking the right questions. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And it's that became sort of second nature to me. And then the most important thing when you're the leader of the team, when you ask these questions, you listen. And you read, you listen. And I've become a really good listener and also quite good at asking the right questions. And these are all around when we came to our behaviors and actions, so how do we do things that really make a difference to the team? And we started to develop our own playbook. We called it at the time the black book, because our big old-fashioned black folder. And we just started to write down our winning behaviors, the actions that we wanted to distribute people to work with. It made a massive difference and became kind of second nature to me. So then when rugby union went professional, and I became the first full-time professional rugby coach in the rugby team, doing the same process was second nature. So I didn't even think about it. I'm speaking to rugby players. What do you think? What do you think? I remember at the time, some of the big names in rugby, Mike Johnson, Johnny Wilkinson, Lawrence, they'll sit now, they're falling out and go, what do you mean, what do we think? What do you're the coach. You tell us what to do, we'll do it. And I go, no, we're going to change this. I want to hear from you first. I want to know what you think about this. And then I'm going to step in and either agree with you or not agree with you. I'm still leading the team. I'm still totally in charge of this. But I want to know what you think. And once they got it, they really got it. I mean, that team that won in 2003, they're amazing, talented players, but their big talent was off the field of play, how we really got this whole organization working around values, behaviors, actions. So on the field of play, it made a big difference. But they were involved in not only the decisions in terms of how we played the game of rugby, but how we acted as a team, the culture we're trying to create. Because I think, and I've shared this many times, I think the C in CEO must stand for culture. The number one thing, I think you, or the most people I've ever met, really understand that. Get the culture right, the organization's got a real chance of flourishing. You can have the best products in the world, the best people in the world, but if the culture's wrong, it's going to all end in tears.
Yeah.
And they got that. They really understood that. And we had a lively group. Some of the team meetings were pretty, pretty forthright. Because they wanted to win. They were not worried about saying things that may kind of be against what I'm thinking or that's the team's thinking. And that's what I really enhanced them to do. And we call this winning behaviors. So then to take that into a sporting environment, which most of the audience who I speak to, your leadership can see what England won the World Cup. They can actually see this what made a difference. So it's not theory. And you've taken the practical side of what we've done to a whole new level within your organization.
Yeah, and I've said this many times at a number of CEO forums and tech industry forums that still in sport there's a very clear differentiation between performance and results. It's very obvious what those things are. You speak to the coach, you'll talk about the performance and they might comment on the result. In business, those two things still tend to get quite blurry. And I think the benefit of our playbook and the winning behaviours is that it further helps us to decouple performance and behaviours from results, because everybody wants results in a commercial environment. We're judged on the results that we get. However, the thing that we're most in control of is how we behave, how we show up, and being very, very specific about what those things look like. So that bridge, that business sport bridge, is quite an interesting one for us.
Again, when I spoke to your group about it, well, I call this what's called working in and on the business. And what I found with almost every high achiever, including myself, when you first start to work with it, they're 100% working in the business. They're driven by results, KPIs, getting results. And what I really learned was that the real high achievers, the real talented people, they tweak that slightly. So I think it's about having 90% working in the business, still doing your day job, you've got to deliver results. But can you spend that 10% of your time working on the business, where you stand back, you work with all your colleagues, you actually involve other people. And the whole Winning Behaviors program is all about working on the business. And if you can just spend that 10% of your time on a regular basis working on, not just in, be very, very clear, you can't work 100% on the business. You have no business.
Yeah.
So 90% in the business, doing your job, but on where you sit back. And teams that do that on a regular basis, that's what your team has undoubtedly done. Just find that an hour a week or a couple of hours a week just to work on and share this with the whole organization. It's massively successful. So it's hugely possible, but it's quite hard at times because sometimes you just get distracted and we've got to do that. And suddenly the on can get watered down a little bit. That's a big mistake. You've got to keep that in to 90% and the on the business to 10%. And if you work on the business, then you can create these values, these actions, and allows people to really be involved in the decision. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah. There were three. It's interesting how the playbook obviously has come together. It's brought together the values, the performance, the winning behaviours, the purpose of the company, all into one place. And as we roll that out, we've assigned, as you know, we've got a full-time program director now to bring this to life constantly for the team. And
I have to say, I don't interrupt you, but you are the first company I've worked with that's done that.
Oh,
I have a full-time person. That is real groundbreaking stuff. And to me, when I heard that, was just like, wow, that shows you just the value you put onto it, but just the importance of it. And I agree totally. And I promise you, when I heard that, I've written to various companies who I've worked with and said, by the way, this company has put a full-time person on this. That's how important this is. And it's absolutely amazing. So for me, just a huge congratulations, because that was and I've worked with lots of companies, on this, but you're the first person who's really taken that to a level where you put a full-time person on this whole process. And it'll pay off, I promise you.
Yeah. And we launched it end of June. We've got a commitment, so we've already had people involved in the whole review process. So every single person that was employed up until the end of June has been involved in the review process. Our next commitment is between now and the end of the year that every single employee will be part of a half-day workshop with our program director to help discuss it, bring it to life. It's really interesting, the things. There's a couple of the winning behaviours that I wanted to chat to you about, the things that I think have really resonated that have come from our early chats. Yeah. So when you spoke early on to us around, I think it was about the England rugby team, you were talking about we want to be the fastest team in the world. We want to work at pace, scare the hell out of the opposition, basically. Through discussions internally, we know that when we do our best work, we work pace and collaboration, super important. So if we get people connecting together, playing people to the strengths, and we work quickly, we win. And the opposite happens. So if we're cumbersome, if we're slow, if we don't do what we say we're going to do, and people don't collaborate, we don't win. Yeah. So we codified that, and we've said, look, when we are on it, as we call it, when we show up and we're on it, this is what it looks like in our business, and we've documented what that looks like in the playbook. The other two things that resonated really well were how we show up, and I think you were talking a lot previously around Team GB. I think that was much more around some of the kind of, whilst recognising there's 26 different sports, you've actually got a set of rules that apply for everyone. Yeah. And how do people show up when you're representing Team GB? Yeah. And it's the same for FSP. We've got lots of different capability areas, lots of different service offerings, but actually when you walk through that door in the morning, or when you show up anywhere, how do you show up? And it's with energy, with positivity, with ambition. Clear. And that's super important for us, and that's been something that's really resonated for us as well. And then the other big one, which again goes back to the rugby one, it's always on my mind and it's always very relatable, is where you have you refer to it as teacup, and the thinking correctly under pressure. For us, that's a lot around anticipating different scenarios that could happen. So I suppose in the rugby context in 2003, it was about, if this happens, if we're behind at this point, or if these things happen, what are we going to do? Drilling that extensively. For us, it's very similar, because what happens if this happens in a customer environment? What happens if the backdrop of the economic environment's different? What are we going to do? So those things have been very relatable, and that bridge between sport and business isn't always a like-for-like analogy, but there are many things that we've been able to apply now.
I'll just comment a couple. First, the first one, our and I don't like the word, but our kind of mission statement or vision, our kind of headline use for the team, which I was really pleased. This fundamental did come from me. It wasn't about being the number one team in the world or winning World Cups. It was, can we get 80,000 people on their feet going nuts by the way we're playing? So can we get the whole of the crowd at Twickenham going crazy by the way we're playing? And when I showed this to the players, I said, "What do we know?" They first of all said, "Well, how are we going to do that?" And I said, "How are we going to do that? To do that, we've got to play faster than any team has ever played the game, because that will get people on their feet, excited. And by the way, you'll be." And they could see them all step forward. And they said that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to not just win for England at Twickenham. They wanted to get 80, because no one had ever done that before. When I played for England, we played the most deadly dull team ever. Everyone just sat there, almost fast asleep watching us play because it was just such a slow game. So can we do something like that? So the speed was everything. And I wasn't doing it for any kind of romantic notion about how the game should be played. I just thought if we could play quicker than anybody else in world rugby, over 80 minutes with the players we've got, we'd have a better chance of winning. That was backed up by a lot of data and stats as well. And what you just described then in terms of your business, I can totally see that. When people get excited by getting things done and get things moving, what they don't want to know, the meeting's in 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time, or we got const. How can you create your own winning behaviors based on examples of how you've been successful in business, about why you're successful? And a lot of it clearly comes down to the speed you can operate at. But there's no difference. That's why, sporting analogies, the same with business analogies. I could tell you your business analogy. They're working so quick to get these deals done. That's why they're successful. How can we apply that to rugby? And it will be speed from line out, speed from scrum, speed from ruck and roll. So it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's amazing analogy to actually compare it to, because I've taken business analogy into sport, where most people think sport should go to business. I think it's both. If you're running a sports team, I often say to people, who in the business world are you speaking? I speak to Simon. And if I'm talking to business people, who are you speaking to? Myself, Martin Johnson, Charlie Woods. And these have all got bright people who've got real thoughts about how you can take your business performance to a whole new level by just comparing what happens in sport and business. So they're the same thing.
Yeah. And I suppose that relentless desire to be better, I'd like to think we've always been open to, feedback, and we refer to it in the playbook as feedback as a gift, and, how we can best give and receive feedback. But genuinely being open to that, and genuinely having to look at the business and say, look, what was good for last year might not be good moving forward in some of those areas. But certainly, really, really exciting times for us, and I'm excited for us to be doing more together on the playbook, because this will not be a static document that sits on the shelf. This has got to be something that's living, breathing, that we're all the time looking to improve upon.
I think the playbook you've delivered and created so far is fantastic. I'll say the next step, because I've read it word for word. I think it's absolutely amazing. But if I was advising, I think the next step, okay, just take every individual. Here's the playbook. What else are you going to do now, really do personally, to improve yourself?
Yeah.
Because if you get every individual in your company really say, okay, what am I going to do today to make sure I'm going to become better at my job? It's a two-way process. So FSP are going to invest in you as the individual, but what are you doing as well? How can you be part of this and take it to a whole new level? We did with the rugby team. I said to you, the team stuff's fine. I want 15 players in the rugby team. I want, in terms of Olympic terms, I want everyone with a gold medal around your neck individually. Can you become the best player in the world? And there's no reason why anyone working for FSP can't be the best in your industry at what they do. How do you do that? How do I take my skill set to a whole new level? And again, you involve in the decision. What are we going to do? It's a two-way process. The team stuff's working really, really well. We've got this amazing playbook that's being developed and getting better and better and better. But what I now need is every individual to really sign up to this now and really commit. So, okay, two-way process. What else can I do to take my job, my performance to a whole new level and really contribute to what's already an amazing, successful company?
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. And I think it's that balance. What we see time and time again is people want to do well for themselves, for their family, for their immediate inner circle. They want to do well within the team that they're operating within, and they want to be part of a company that stands for something. And teamship can take the form of, teamship could be you and your loved ones. It could be you and your immediate team. It could be I'm part of a company that I'm really, really proud of, that's got the balance of ambition, humanity, and feeling that it's a wholesome place to be, a company that cares about fairness, that cares about, a wider set of things in the world. And I think for me, we want to win, but we also want to do good in the world as well. And I don't think the two things are mutually exclusive. And hopefully we can keep bringing those things to life, where we can be commercially successful and doing good and helping other people come through.
Absolutely. And interesting, I do various things today. Obviously, I love doing this work with you and people like yourself in terms of developing the winning behaviours and teamship. But I also run a ski academy in the south of France called Apex 2100. Been doing that for quite a long time now. We've got over 160 kids there. When I say kids, these are kids from 12 to 18, 22 different nationalities, 50-50 boys, girls. but they're all great skiers. You don't get into this place unless you're really world-class skiers. So we got some of the most amazing skiers there. So, but this process I use, and you just triggered my thoughts then when you spoke about families and taking the concept outside of the work environment. It's exactly the same. Young people, we ask them, "What do you think? What do you think? What do you think?" And of course, when you think about things like digital technology and mobile phones and social media, sometimes that advances us in terms of what they're experiencing as young people growing up. So you've got to say, what do you think? What do you think? So we've created our own winning behaviours around young people's thoughts. And if you involve people, again, in young people, they'll deliver.
Yeah.
And same with your family. When you go home to your family, your kids, your partners, and just say, well, what do you think? What do you think? Can we create winning behaviours around this?
And there's so much to be said for confidence in, I mean, we don't explicitly refer to confidence as a winning behaviour, but I think it's alluded to in the playbook that we're here to create a positive, progressive and a culture that's built on belief of doing the right things. But I mean, I suppose in sport and in business, there's an awful lot to be said around momentum and everybody feeling confident that we're all moving in the same direction with the belief that we're doing the right things.
Sure, I'd say confidence is what I call a value. Okay, our values is we want to show confidence, with each other. We want to show confidence in front of the client. But what actions do you see on a daily basis that would display that confidence? And I would say, from a business point of view, that is debriefing really openly and honestly, especially when things have gone well. If things have gone well, how can we really sit down? How can we take it to a whole new level? But also when things have not gone well, are we going to be really open and honest about it? Why didn't it go well? And something you've learned this to speed the deal, maybe it's just not happening quick enough. That's what's caused the blockages. But you got confidence as the value, but then what are our winning behaviours? And the key thing, what are the actions you see on a daily basis that will say that shows this is a very confident organisation, confident leadership team, and confident individuals. And it's so straightforward. When you talk about it, confidence is a great value to have, but it's not just words. What are the actions you see to actually bring this whole thing to life?
So I have a copy of the playbook here, which I'm really pleased about. So this was, I mean, we wanted to frame it in the beginning so that I could give an intro as to what this actually is, which was really a representation of our cultural DNA and that place where we could document out the purpose of the company, what the ethos of the company is, our view of the performance drivers, our values, and then we're into the winning behaviours. I didn't know if it was worth maybe just picking out, so we've got 14 winning behaviours that we arrived at. Yeah. I wasn't sure if it was worth us maybe just chatting through a couple of those winning behaviours that we haven't spoken about so far. One of the ones that was standing out to me was sort of the importance of one team.
Yeah.
And we've spoken at length about the importance of team and trust and why diversity of input and thought and having everybody working together is super important. It'd be great to hear from you as to the importance of that particular winning behaviour and what that's meant to you in the different contexts over the years.
I mean, the best example I can give, Simon, of one team, and a lot of people talk about one team, we want to be one team, great word. What does it actually mean? The best example, I was, after my rugby career with England, I had this amazing job with Team GB. I was director of sport for 3 Olympic Games for Beijing 2008, for Vancouver 2010, obviously London 2012. And those, follow Olympic sports, the Olympic world, Team GB consists of 26 different businesses. There's 26 sports, British cycling, sailing, taekwondo, athletics, 26 different sports. And every 4 years, they all come together as one team. And we're looking in on the TV and we see this wonderful Team GB. Behind the scenes, it wasn't that way. When I first took over, there were literally 26 individual sports, all very much looking after themselves, working in silos. They really didn't care about what the other teams were doing. In fact, the funding model didn't actually encourage them to care, because if another team failed, the chance that you may get more money from Sport England or UK Sport or the lottery. So there just wasn't this one team, and we spent a lot of work on this whole process about how can you create winning behaviours and actions, and just basically show that another part of the organisation can bring you down, and also another part of the organisation can take your profile and your business to a whole new level. But when I first started talking about this, you can see there was real kind of negativity in the world. That they would say we don't really care what these other sports do. We just look after ourselves and we're fine. Big mistake, and we really did learned a lot of lessons from Beijing, which was okay, but not great. But by the time London came around, the team was really one team. We spent a huge amount of work really understanding how your actions can affect other people in other parts of the organizations. You know, one of my favorite sayings, you say, how do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered as a person who kind of brought down the team because you said something daft on social media or failed a drugs test and all this sort of stuff? Or do you want to be this person who remembered as someone who was really inspirational, was really took great pride in their team, but also took great pride in making sure the other team members were fine? So we spent a lot of time on this one team concept. And we literally brought 26 individual businesses all together under one team. So from Beijing, which I would say was be 3 or 4 out of 10, by the time London came around, it was 9 or 10 out of 10 in terms of how we operated one team. Because this part of the organization can affect this part of the organization. And if people understand that, how do you want to be remembered? It's a real powerful statement. We spent a huge amount of time and effort on it, and it worked. There's no doubt London 2012 was hugely successful on the field of play. But I was lucky enough to see them off the field of play, behind the scenes, how everyone really supported each other. And we ended up with a really fantastic result based on this one team concept. But it wasn't easy. Everyone's going to say, okay, I'm part of this. I'm going to actually take more than a passing interest, how everyone else is actually doing, and can I contribute to their success as well as the success of my own business itself.
And I think for us, what we've seen so far, the one team concept has always been true in terms of understanding that high trust environments lead to success. So we try and ensure that with our leadership team, there's very, very high trust. You know, nothing goes unsaid, that we celebrate the good and we're very honest and transparent about the bad. But I think as we've expanded geographically and as you get bigger and you've got more and more people, you don't necessarily know everybody's name all of the time. And particularly when you open a new region. So for example, we've started our India operation this year. We opened a London office this year. We started Glasgow the year before. We've been operating in Spain for a number of years. And actually, one team can apply to geography for us, but it can also apply to the different capabilities. So where you were referring to the sports, the 26 different sports, you know, we've got different cybersecurity capabilities, we've got data AI capabilities, we've got digital strategy teams, managed service teams, all of which have their own quite different identity in some respects. So we've got almost the commonality of the one FSP culture, the one team approach, but then we've almost got different identities and different things that teams are really, really good at. And what we've started to see happen now is where people are starting to share insights, best practice across those different capability teams. And to your example, the different sports, you know, where people are sharing, here's what worked for us, or here are the things that we're doing that you can apply in different areas.
The analogy is absolutely perfect because of the Olympic example. You'd have some sports, take British cycling, brilliantly run by Dave Brailsford, Sir Dave Brailsford now. They're kind of a lot of knowledge on what they did on the sports science, nutrition, psychology, all these areas. Initially, before I got involved, it was like this. It was very kind of, that's our IP, very protected. And some stuff you've got to protect, but a lot of stuff you can share with people. But what we found, and Dave was fantastic at this, they started to share the other sports. This is why we think it actually works. And what we found that you get it back in bucket loads and bucket loads. Do not think that another much smaller sport couldn't share an idea that could make a difference with you. But if you start to share with people, and you're very open with people and transparent with people, you operate as one team, you'll get it back in spades, loads and loads and loads of new thoughts and new ideas. And that's what we're trying to do here. So I think the sharing of information, agreeing the ways of operating, and it's hard work. There's no easy way to do it, but you've got to start with the leadership. If the leaders are happy to share, really start to share information and knowledge, you'll be the big benefactor of that, because you'll get so much thoughts and knowledge coming back in. And it was inspirational to see how we moved from Beijing 2008 to London 2012. That 4-year period was just fantastic. It was a complete sea change in one team. In Beijing, we weren't one team. We were 26 different business, all working in silos. London 2012, we were definitely one team. Even down to the way the medical team worked. We all worked. All the athletes came in for any medical advice, and it was one team. No matter whether you're a cyclist or an athlete, you came in and used the same doctors. So we actually shared all this medical advice across the whole of the sports. And there's so much out there. There's so much knowledge. When you just never stop learning. But if you've got to go to a process where you can't share that knowledge, it doesn't actually work. So share knowledge across your different geographical areas, which you just described, different sports, different functions. It all actually works. But it's everyone just kind of sitting back, go, I want to be part of one team. I am prepared to share information and knowledge and not act as a silo a closed door approach to the whole thing, which just doesn't work.
It's interesting because another one of the winning behaviours I was going to pull out, it's kind of linked to it. Some of these things overlap quite a lot. Everyone is a leader, we refer to as a winning behaviour. And what we're basically saying, look, anybody has the opportunity to lead on something, A, that you're passionate about, B, that you might be really good at. And actually we do away with traditional hierarchy here and those places where, particularly in big corporates, you can get stopped from being able to get involved in something or, get put in your box. Whereas actually here, what we're trying to do is encourage people to step forward with ideas, step forward with your innovation, step forward with your feedback, because actually not only will you be heard and seen and listened to, but also you've got an opportunity to carve out your own niche. You've got an opportunity to lead. And it might be that some people are not great people leaders. It might be on a particular discipline, or the opposite. It might be that some people are really, really good. So what we've tried to do with that particular winning behaviour is give an environment where people can thrive, and an environment that's kind of much more about an interconnected network of people rather than this kind of really traditional corporate hierarchy. Yeah. Have you seen that in other places?
The kind of the current buzz term, a much used phrase now is psychological safety. I saw this in your company from day one. When I sat in the back of the room that first time I came to do a talk for you, I saw people talking about subjects that were quite sort of challenging, quite out there, but they were confident. They were saying things. They could feel safe in saying that. People weren't going to take offense to this. One of my other favorite lines outside of psychological safety, and also what I find, with psychological safety, you speak to the leader and say, did your team really feel safe in putting forward new thoughts, new ideas, productively challenging what's going on? Or are they sitting there worried if you say this, you may upset the boss, you may upset one member of the team? And most people think they've got a psychological safe team, but often when you speak to people in the team, they sometimes actually, I don't really say this. I make it really, really, really clear. There's no such thing as a daft idea. Because let me decide that. You and me will not fall out ever if you stand up and put forward your thoughts and ideas in a very kind of constructive way. You and me will fall out if you sort of sit there with your arms folded, worried about saying something because you're worried about upsetting somebody. So this is absolutely huge in sport and business. And this is what high-performing teams do, and this is what one teams do in terms of really understanding, I've got thoughts, I've got ideas, can we put them forward? And there's no fear of any consequences, however kind of radical the idea may actually be, because sometimes those radical ideas, and I think that's what leadership's about listening, going, actually, wow, in my coaching terms, that makes a boat go faster. That'll make a difference. And we're going to do that. And that's where you got to really encourage people. And I think with technology today, there's no excuse for not putting in a process where people can put forward new thoughts, new ideas on an ongoing basis. I'm going to wait for the weekly team meeting or the weekly call. You can do this on an ongoing basis. There's no such thing as a daft idea. Businesses, that's how we thrive. They got to feel real comfortable of putting ideas forward, even if they are maybe a little bit sort of contrary to what maybe the team's saying or one or two people are thinking.
We spoke earlier, I think you mentioned earlier, around 9s or 10s out of 10, or we were talking about a certain mark out of 10, and one of our winning behaviours that we specifically named was around 9s and 10s. And 9s and 10s really is about our desire and commitment to see excellence everywhere in the business. And that could be a document that we're giving to a customer. It could be a telephone conversation. It could be a meeting. It could even be how we're interacting with people, how we're speaking to people. And I guess that's a job that's never done because actually humans being humans mean that we're not always 9s and 10s, but we should always aspire to be delivering 9s and 10s. And when we don't, to your point then about being honest and saying, well, look, we were an 8 and we might have got the deal or we might have got the result that we were looking for, but we weren't quite there as far as our performance or our commitment to excellence. How important have you seen that, commitment to the sort of, and that, I suppose, that common language about measuring excellence?
I think the term 9s and 10s is great. Everyone understands. When we get out of 10 here, we've got 9 or 10, great, okay, we can live with that. And it's if you don't get those 9s out of 10s. I think what I learned in my small leasing and finance company, and I certainly applied this to the rugby team, the Olympic team. What I was really guilty of what happens when things are going really well, So things are going well. You've won the big deal, without being too kind of simplistic about it. You go out to the pub, you have a few beers, you have the champagne, you celebrate. What happens when things are, so you got your 9s and 10s, we go and celebrate. What happens when things are not going well, where you've not got 9s and 10s for something or anything, you got 3s or 4s. Everyone in Monday morning, what happened? Massive overreaction. What I learned to do is totally flip that. When things are not going really well, go down the pub, do not overreact. But when you got your 9s and 10s, everyone in Monday morning, why do we get 9? Why do we get 10? Why do we do? How can we do even better? So even when you get your 9s and 10s, how can we improve on that even more? So you never stop learning, you never stop questioning things. How can we move things forward? So yes, you can learn from failure or things are not going well when you don't get your 9s and 10s, but also you can learn from the 9s and 10s. And when you actually put that against every process in your organization, it becomes really exciting. But I always like to get people, just like when you win a big game of rugby, everyone in 8 o'clock Monday morning, why do we win? What actually happened? What caused it to happen? And when you lose a big game of rugby, I mean, crikey, we lost to Scotland once. I mean, this stuff happens. It's just, I'm not sure you can put that in the video, but we'll try. We lost to Scotland once. This stuff happens. So, but you don't overreact. You don't become a bad team just because you have one setback or one. And I see people kind of get that the wrong way round. So even with 9s and 10s, which I think is a great value and a great winning behaviour, how can you apply it to everything we actually do, but always questioning it? How can we get it even higher than those 9s and 10s?
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think particularly at the moment, I mean, the world, the macroeconomic backdrop isn't amazing. Things have got harder pretty much for everybody, I'd say, and there's more and more change and sadly a lot of bad news in the world, but actually trying to keep calm heads and ensuring that we are focusing on the things that we're in control of and being measured about that, I think is very important. And I suppose it's then the commitment to 9s and 10s is also basically saying, let's not just fixate on results. Results are important. And of course we are in a results game to a degree, but at the same time, the lead indicator to the result is working on those kind of leading KPIs about doing the right things, putting the right activity in, doing the best job that we can possibly do, and showing up to not just do good enough, but to do something that's excellent. And I think people resonate with that because I think the high majority of people want to do a great job. Yeah. I think that's still true.
There's no doubt. And I call this, Simon, I really understand the basics of the team, the basics of your business. Get your basics right. They are what I call your safety net to success. Your safety net to success. If you get but what are your basics? And sometimes you go to companies and say, what are your basics? What are the things that are non-negotiable? What we've got to get these right as a fundamental to the business. We did this in rugby, and I learned this from a colleague of mine called Yuda Shanir, who is an ex-Israeli fighter pilot, and he was always talking about the basics. And he said to me one day, "What are the basics in rugby?" And I kind of just and I couldn't answer him straight away. And he said, "Well, that's not a great start here because you're the rugby coach. What are the things you've got to get right?" And I couldn't answer the question. Was it passing, tackling, line-up, or whatever? And after a few more months and a few more games and really understanding this process, the basics of rugby became quite simple. If I could pick my best team, if we got 100% of our line-outs right and 100% of our scrums right, we never lost a game. And they were incredible stats to come through. If we got that right and that right, just two parts of business, and we had our right people involved, we never lost a game of rugby. And they were astonishing. So what you start to do is what are we going to focus on? Line-outs and scrums. Those two things we've got to really focus on. Don't ignore them. Keep improving them. And I think the more you can really understand what are the basics of the company, once you know those basics, how can we really work on improving them on a daily basis so everyone understands that we are all responsible. So anyone in your organization, what are the basics? They go bang, bang, bang. And maybe 6, maybe 5, whatever. But we get those right, we know we run a successful business. And it's amazing how many people don't quite understand that because they get a bit confused by the whole mass of the job. But so you got to actually get this back into one process. What are our basics? These are our safety net success. We've got to get these right, and we will get these right because we know they're the foundations of the whole business.
Yeah, absolutely. I can totally relate to that, especially as we're a services organisation, and it's really quite a simple challenge in that we've got our people and we've got our customers. Our people have got to thrive, learn, bring the ambition, enjoy the journey, which is another one that we've got as a winning behaviour. regardless of, it's not meant to be easy. It's an uncomfortable ride sometimes. But then equally with our customers, we've got to have customers that love us, that love what we do, but where we're challenging them, positively challenging them to make change and protect their businesses or organisations for the future. So, I mean, I guess the last bit I was going to cover off was, we talked about at the end of our winning behaviours, we've got a very specific couple of winning behaviours, one around sharing the love and one around enjoying the journey. And I thought I'd share that with you, because sharing the love is about positive affirmations and making sure that sometimes great work can be done and not necessarily recognised. So I think it's very healthy to have an environment where, don't want to celebrate mediocrity, but at the same time, we want to be able to say, look, here's a great example of people living the winning behaviours, of doing great work, of receiving amazing feedback, being very specific that we want to see more of that. And enjoying the journey equally is about saying to people, look, this isn't going to be easy all of the time. Let's embrace it. Let's embrace change and learn and thrive together. Yeah. And I think that's been a really helpful kind of framing for people as well.
No, I think the one I agree totally. Again, sharing the love, I really like that in many aspects. But I also spend a lot of time, and this again for my small, looking back now, my small leasing finance company. Yeah, I knew these 9-10 people really, really well. I got to know their family well, the kids well, and really took an interest in how the family's going. And we did the same thing with the rugby team. Just simple things like on match day, they're treated like VIPs. Their tickets were in the right place. They got there for lunch, so the player could actually sit back on that day where he's playing for England. No, his family's been totally looked after. If they got kids, some that had kids, just send them an England rugby shirt, sign with the team. On their birthdays, their wives on their anniversaries. I think things like that make a real difference to organisations. And I was, and I was on first known terms with not only their kids, some of them had kids with their wives, but especially their parents. Their parents have never been treated properly. So for them to be invited to the game when their son's playing at Twickenham in front of 80,000 people, to be sat in the right seats, to have a lunch beforehand, to be looked after afterwards, these are kind of pretty small things, but they're massively important.
Yeah.
And it just showed that I think that's the nearest things I can talk about in terms of sharing the love. Same with the Olympic team. One of the big distractions when Olympic athletes is on that game day, on that match day, on that Olympic gold medal day. You don't want to be looking around the stadium and wondering where your wife is, where your kids are, your mum and dad are. They've got to know our team. And we spent a huge amount of time and effort. We put that in place. So they knew. And the feedback afterwards, after the big events like the Rugby World Cup, Olympic Games, the feedback from the athletes almost always started, thank you so much for looking after my family. And I think it's such an important thing. They haven't got to spend heaps of money on them because they're going anyway, but just getting the detail right, and you putting your person in charge of running this whole program, to me was just groundbreaking, because that allows you to really get to a whole new level about where these winning behaviours and actions can go to. And I like to think that we did this certainly with the rugby team and the Olympic team, but I keep repeating this, it all came from my experience running my own small company. But that was the big learnings. I took those learnings without realising at the time. I was taking those, just became second nature to running a sports team. There's no difference. I'm often said, well, come on, running a sports team must be different than running a business. It's just not. The definition of running a business and sport is delivering results with people. That's what you're undoubtedly doing, and your program is world beating now in terms of this. That's what you do as a sports team. You deliver results with people. There's my team, there's your team. There's no difference. It's about people. It's about creating that culture. And if you can share the love to make the greater family, your own family, so they understand it. And also by sharing the love, Simon, it allows you to understand, because things aren't always great and good. Some things sometimes tough, and things actually happen. And you actually, one of our family sayings was, the upsides far outweigh the downsides. So it's time, being a high-profile kind of coach, and especially in the sporting world, it has its moments, and you get some stick in the press and all this sort of stuff. But we made it clear, the upsides of what I do far outweigh the downsides. But sound is downsides, and your family, your kids, your wife, your parents have got to kind of understand that's all part of the deal. It doesn't always happen like that. You will get there eventually, but on the way there can be some pretty rocky roads. So it allows you to really work with the individual, but also understand behind the individual there's other people who are invested in them being successful in this company.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely where our heads are at, is that we see the people and see the people that sits behind the role, and always figuring out, what's the win-win, because we're going to support people, but we're going to challenge people as well, but we do it together. We do it together as a team, and I totally agree that the people side of it, that is our opportunity, and to do things in the right way. Clive, the programme we've done has been fantastic. Working with you, we're going to continue working with you on our winning culture, and I'm sure you will suitably help us and challenge us moving forward. We're looking forward to it, and thank you very much to you and your team for helping us so far.
No, I can categorically say thank you. I really enjoyed that first meeting when I came to talk to you. The workshops were fantastic because the enthusiasm was there. The people did want to learn. There were sponges of thirst for knowledge, and that allows you then to deliver through all your team. But I think I'm very clear that just take one person who doesn't actually buy into this can cause so many problems. So it's understand you need the whole organisation to buy into this process. And from what I've seen, everyone is a big well done to you and your team.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.